The news broke quietly at first, a small article buried between local updates about roadwork and school events. But by noon, it was everywhere. West Virginia State Police investigating fraud scheme tied to viral Whittaker family. For many, it was just another headline in a week full of them. But for those who had followed the Whittaker story for years, it was something else entirely. A shock, a betrayal, or, for some, a confirmation of their worst suspicions. The article was brief, but the words hit hard. It mentioned two names, Eric Carroll of Georgia and Patrick Rurik of Odd, West Virginia, men allegedly connected to the Whittaker family through donations and media involvement. Authorities were reportedly investigating possible misuse of funds or misrepresentation of support directed toward the family. Online, it exploded within hours. Reddit threads dissected it. Facebook groups shared screenshots and speculation. TikTok videos appeared, featuring armchair detectives who claimed they knew something all along. The internet, as it always does, was quick to judge. But beneath the noise, one question kept echoing. Is Eric Carroll really guilty of anything? Or is he being wrongly accused in the chaos surrounding one of America's most misunderstood families? Eric had first come into the public eye years earlier, long before the Whittakers. He'd built his reputation as the founder of Dad Talk Today, a podcast and advocacy platform focused on fathers' rights, family court reform, and parental alienation. His tone was passionate, sometimes fiery, but always rooted in the idea that families, especially fathers, deserved fairness and voice. He wasn't a celebrity in the traditional sense, but he had followers. Real ones. People who saw him as a man willing to say out loud what others wouldn't. He wasn't wealthy either. His trips, events, and recordings were often funded by his own pocket. He wasn't the kind of person who screamed, "con artist." That's why, for many, the news didn't fit. But for others, especially those who had grown tired of the drama surrounding the Whittaker family, it made perfect sense. The Whittakers had been famous for years, not because they wanted to be, but because the world made them famous. Their lives in the hills of Odd, West Virginia had been documented by Soft White Underbelly, a YouTube channel known for telling the stories of people on society's margins. Their video, which showed members of the family speaking and interacting in ways that revealed the effects of deep poverty and isolation, went viral. It drew millions of views and an equal number of opinions: pity, curiosity, outrage, and fascination. Overnight, they became both beloved and exploited. People donated, speculated, and argued about them online as if they were fictional characters. And into that storm came Eric. He didn't appear in the first viral videos, but he was one of the few who followed up, not to film, but to help. By then, the Whittaker home was falling apart, and they were struggling with state inspections, septic issues, and increasing attention. Eric stepped in to coordinate donations, manage communication, and, according to his own statements, ensure the family wasn't being used by others. But where there's a tension, there's conflict. The first cracks appeared when Eric and Patrick began working together. Patrick, a local from Odd, claimed to be a close associate of the Whittakers, someone who could act as a go-between. Eric, operating mostly from out of state, relied on him for access and coordination. Together, they reportedly agreed to split responsibilities and any revenue generated from the videos and online fundraisers. A third share, of course, would go to the Whittakers themselves. It sounded simple enough. But in rural communities where rumors move faster than news, nothing stays simple for long. Locals started whispering. Some claimed Patrick was pocketing money meant for the family. Others said Eric was doing the same. The truth was murky: who was handling what, how funds were divided, and whether the family even knew the full arrangement. Online, the narrative shifted. People started demanding receipts. Accusations flew, some rooted in confusion, others in malice. Then came the official announcement, an investigation by the West Virginia State Police. When the news reached Eric, he was stunned. According to friends, he was blindsided. He'd known there were disagreements and rumors, but an actual fraud investigation? That was beyond what he expected. The day the article dropped, his phone reportedly didn't stop ringing. Messages poured in from supporters, critics, and media alike. Some offered prayers, others demanded explanations. He didn't post immediately. That wasn't his way. He'd been through storms before, false accusations, online harassment, smear videos, but this felt different. This time, it wasn't just gossip. It was law enforcement. In private conversations, Eric maintained the same line. "I haven't done anything wrong. I've helped that family more than anyone else has." Those close to him echoed that sentiment. One longtime friend said, "Eric's not perfect, but a fraudster? No way. He's put more into that family than he's ever taken." But in the age of the internet, public perception often matters more than facts. Meanwhile, Patrick remained quiet. His social media went dark. Local contacts reported seeing him around town, but he refused interviews. Some said he was cooperating with the investigation. Others claimed he was under scrutiny himself. And the Whittaker family? They stayed silent too. Betty, the family matriarch, had always been wary of outsiders. She'd seen too many come and go, people who promised help but brought chaos instead. She didn't speak to the press. She didn't answer questions online. All anyone knew was that she was still living in the same old house, still struggling, still trying to keep her family together. The silence only fueled speculation. Was Eric lying? Was Patrick? Were both? Or was this entire mess the product of misunderstanding, jealousy, and poor communication? As days passed, content creators began dissecting every old video, looking for clues. Some pointed to moments where Eric appeared uncomfortable or frustrated in footage. Proof, they said, of hidden guilt. Others defended him, replaying the same clips as evidence of his sincerity. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. One supporter wrote, "Eric's been there from day one. He's done more for that family than any of you trolls ever will." Another fired back, "He's a manipulator. He saw a viral story and decided to cash in." And in the middle of it all was Eric, caught between two worlds that refused to see him clearly. Privately, Eric reached out to law enforcement to cooperate. According to one acquaintance, he even offered to provide full documentation of his work with the family, donation records, expense reports, communications, and contracts. He insisted he had nothing to hide. But online, transparency wasn't enough. Once a headline painted a man in shadow, the light of truth could take months or years to catch up. He spoke to a few friends, explaining how he'd spent his own money traveling to West Virginia, how he'd tried to connect the Whittakers with lawyers and social workers, how he'd paid for groceries, transportation, and home repairs. "If this is what I get for helping people," he told one friend, "then no wonder good folks stop trying." The friend later shared that quote anonymously, and it spread like wildfire. It became a rallying cry among those who believed in him. But the investigation wasn't over. As law enforcement continued gathering statements, the story deepened. Reports emerged that donations had been routed through multiple platforms: PayPal, GoFundMe, and private transfers. Some records were incomplete. Others showed inconsistencies. Nothing proved guilt, but nothing cleared anyone either. The reality was simple. In a chaotic web of goodwill, internet fame, and rural poverty, money had moved fast and without structure. And when money moves without structure, suspicion follows. As one journalist put it, this isn't just a case about fraud. It's about trust. Who has it, who loses it, and who gets destroyed in the middle. For Eric, it felt like déjà vu. He'd seen it happen before, online creators, activists, or advocates torn apart by their own communities. He knew how easy it was for good intentions to look like exploitation. And as the first week of the investigation closed, he was left with a question he'd never had to ask before. When you try to help the helpless, who protects you when the world turns against you? Comment below. Do you think Eric Carroll is being unfairly targeted, or should the investigation continue until every dollar is accounted for? Is he a victim of misunderstanding, or is this the price of public involvement in private struggles? Comment your thoughts below before part 2 drops. Hey everyone, before we get into the next part, I've got something special to share with you. If you're all about making your home smarter, cozier, and just a little bit more you, then you've got to check this out. We've partnered with TrecBo.com, a place built for people who love clever solutions and everyday comfort. From wellness and skincare must-haves to smart home gadgets, heated gear, and lifestyle tech, TrecBo is packed with products that make life easier, warmer, and way more fun. I've personally picked some of my favorite finds, things that actually work, look great, and make your day smoother. Whether it's something to simplify your morning routine, help you unwind after a long day, or bring a little innovation into your home, you'll find it there. So before you scroll past, take a quick look at TrecBo.com. Trust me, it's full of discoveries waiting to make your everyday better. Alright, now let's get back to it, because after this video, you're definitely going to want to explore what TrecBo has in store for the Whittaker household community. The internet doesn't sleep, and neither do accusations. By the time 48 hours had passed since the article's release, Eric Carroll's name had become an algorithm's favorite meal. His face, once associated with family advocacy and heartfelt discussions, was now plastered across thumbnails with words like exposed, scammer, the truth about Eric, and Whittaker family lies. The shift was dizzying. Just weeks earlier, Eric had been posting updates about the Whittakers' repairs and progress. He had filmed videos explaining their septic issues, state inspections, and ongoing need for donations. Now, those same videos were being dissected and twisted. Clips of him handing money to the family were slowed down, zoomed in, analyzed like crime scene footage. Each gesture, each word was scrutinized for hidden meaning. "Look at the way he's smiling here," one TikToker said. "That's not a man helping. That's a man profiting. He's faking compassion," another posted. "Classic manipulation tactic. Watch the eyes." But the most dangerous opinions weren't the loud ones. They were the subtle ones. The quiet comments under news posts, where people didn't shout, but whispered doubt. "I thought he was doing something good, maybe not." Eric's supporters, of course, fought back. They flooded comment sections with defenses, posting screenshots of his older work, testimonials from those he'd helped through Dad Talk Today, and videos of him crying while discussing the pain of family separation. "He's a good man," one wrote. "You don't fake that kind of pain." Another added, "I've followed Eric for years. He's not perfect, but he's honest. If he's guilty, then the whole system is upside down." But for every person defending him, 10 more were questioning. The internet, as always, leaned toward suspicion. And that suspicion soon bled offline. In a small cafe in Georgia, Eric sat with his longtime friend and collaborator, Jamie, sipping cold coffee that had gone untouched for half an hour. His phone lay face down on the table, vibrating every few seconds with new notifications. Jamie leaned forward. "You need to say something, man. A statement. A video. Something official." Eric rubbed his forehead. "Every time I say something, they twist it. Every word gets picked apart." "They're already picking it apart, Eric. You staying silent looks like guilt." "I'm not silent," he said softly. "I'm exhausted." Jamie sighed. "Then let's do it right. Sit down, tell your side. No emotion, no anger, just facts." Eric stared at the window, watching the traffic roll by. Facts don't matter to people anymore. They just want a villain. Jamie didn't argue. They both knew he was right. That evening, Eric went live. The video began without his usual intro music. He looked tired, not defeated, but worn down. Behind him, the wall was bare except for a framed photo of his daughter. "Hey, everyone," he began. "I know what's going around. I know what's being said. And I need to talk about it, not because I owe the trolls anything, but because the people who truly support me deserve to hear from me directly." He paused, taking a breath. "I'm not under arrest. I haven't been charged with anything. The police contacted me, and I've spoken with them willingly. I've handed over every document, every message, every receipt I could find related to my time with the Whittakers. I've done nothing wrong." The chat flooded instantly, hearts, angry emojis, questions scrolling faster than he could read. "I went to West Virginia because I care," Eric continued. "I saw a family that needed help, not headlines. I helped raise money, yes, but every dollar that went to that family was documented. I spent my own money traveling, staying there, feeding them. If anyone thinks I profited off them, they don't know the whole story." He paused again, visibly struggling to stay composed. The internet's a funny place. You can spend years building something meaningful, and in one headline, it's gone. As the live stream went on, people clipped it, reshared it, reacted to it. Some applauded his openness. Others accused him of deflection. But what mattered most was that, for the first time since the news broke, Eric looked straight into the camera and said, "I'm not a fraud." And for many, that was enough. The following morning, though, a new twist emerged. A small West Virginia Facebook group posted what they claimed were screenshots from private messages between Patrick and a donor. The messages suggested that money meant for repairs had been delayed or redirected. The posts didn't show Eric's involvement, but his name was mentioned, and that was enough. By noon, #Whittaker scam was trending again. Eric's inbox flooded with hate. Some messages were threatening. Others were heartbreaking. "You broke my heart, Eric. I believed in you. Hope you rot for what you did to them. My mom donated because of you. How could you?" He read each one in silence. Jamie sat beside him, reading the same messages, his jaw tightening. "You need to get a lawyer." "I already did," Eric said. "But it's not about court anymore. It's about reputation." Meanwhile, in Odd, West Virginia, things were no calmer. Locals whispered about the YouTube people again, about how the Whittakers had brought attention, good and bad, to their quiet town. Some blamed the outsiders for stirring trouble. Others said the family was better off before all the cameras and donations. At the small grocery store near the highway, a cashier shook her head while reading the article on her phone. "That poor family," she said. "Always someone trying to make $1 off their name." Her coworker shrugged. "Or maybe that fella's innocent. You know how people get when money's involved." The conversation echoed the same tension playing out online. Truth tangled in gossip, compassion mixed with suspicion. Eric's lawyer, a quiet man named Tom Jacobs, met with him later that week. He'd already spoken with investigators and reviewed the article. "I've seen cases like this before," Tom said. "You're not the first good man to get caught in a mess like this." Eric leaned back in his chair. "They say there's money missing. I want to know how. I want to see where it supposedly went." Tom nodded. "I'll request the records, but you should prepare yourself. This isn't about what's missing. It's about who the public thinks is to blame." "I don't care about public," Eric replied. "I care about the truth." Tom gave a faint smile. "Then we'll find it. But until then, you need to keep calm. Don't lash out. Don't post angry. Let them talk. We'll show proof when the time comes." Eric sighed. That's easy to say when the whole world's calling you a liar. Tom looked him in the eye. If you're innocent, then that's exactly when you stay the calmest. Over the next few days, fragments of the truth began to surface. A donor came forward with messages showing that she'd sent money directly to Patrick, not Eric. Another supporter posted PayPal receipts proving Eric had personally funded several repairs out of pocket. Gradually, the tide began to shift, not completely, but enough to make people pause. YouTube creators who had once accused him quietly deleted their videos. Others posted retractions, though they never used the word apology. Still, the damage had been done. Eric's follower count dropped by thousands. Sponsors distanced themselves. His advocacy work stalled. But beneath the loss was something else, a small, growing current of solidarity. People who'd been falsely accused themselves reached out privately, sharing their own experiences of being misjudged. "I know what it's like," one man wrote. "They called me a monster, too. Don't let them break you." One night, as Eric scrolled through comments, a new post appeared on his feed. It was from an older woman in West Virginia, someone who claimed to have known the Whittakers for years. Her message was simple. "Y'all need to leave that man alone. I've seen plenty come here with cameras and promises. He was the only one who showed up with groceries." That post spread fast, not as fast as the hate, but fast enough to be noticed. For the first time in days, Eric smiled. A week later, Corporal Gilkison of the West Virginia State Police released a short public statement confirming that the investigation was ongoing but no formal charges have been filed. The internet did what it always does with nuance, ignored it. Half the crowd declared Eric exonerated. The other half claimed the cops were covering for him. But for Eric, it was something else entirely, a breath of air after drowning. He recorded another short video that evening. "I know this isn't over," he said, looking calmer than before. "But I want to thank the people who've stood by me. I've learned something through all this, how fast people can turn on you, and how deeply others can stand beside you when you least expect it." He paused, then added, "Whatever happens next, I'll keep fighting for what's right, for families, for truth, and for the people who get kicked while they're trying to do something good." Later that night, after the video went live, a comment appeared beneath it, simple, sincere, and anonymous. "Sometimes doing good means walking through fire. Keep walking, Eric." And for the first time since the nightmare began, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't walking alone. Comment below. Do you think the investigation will clear Eric Carroll completely, or has the damage already been done beyond repair? The days that followed were quiet, at least on the surface. But beneath that calm, the story of Eric Carroll and the Whittaker family had begun to split into two entirely separate worlds, one of public judgment and one of private reckoning. To the public, Eric was either a savior or a schemer. To those who actually knew him, he was just a man trying to hold himself together while the internet tore him apart. The official investigation continued, and while law enforcement offered no new statements, speculation filled the silence. YouTubers uploaded daily updates, with no new information. Facebook pages that once celebrated the Whittaker family's resilience now served as echo chambers of accusation and defense. Every photo, every donation record, every live stream from the months prior became potential evidence. Online detectives zoomed in on background details, the make of a car, the label on a grocery bag, a piece of paper taped to the wall, as if decoding a mystery that didn't exist. Meanwhile, the real people at the center of it, Eric, Patrick, and the Whittakers, were struggling under the weight of it all. For Eric, life had narrowed to three things: his lawyer, his phone, and his thoughts. Each morning, he woke up to an inbox full of mixed messages, some supportive, others cruel. The ones that hurt the most weren't the hate-filled ones, but the quiet ones. Messages like, "I used to respect you. I don't know what to believe anymore. He kept rereading those words until they became a mantra of exhaustion. At times, he thought about quitting altogether, shutting down his platforms, disappearing, letting the internet move on to its next obsession. But something deep inside him resisted. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was purpose. Maybe it was just the need to finish what he started. Meanwhile, Patrick was nowhere to be found online. His pages had been wiped, his usual live streams deleted. Locals and odds said they saw him driving his truck near Beckley, but he refused to talk about the situation. Rumors spread that he'd been questioned by investigators. Others claimed he'd left town. Then, one evening, a small Facebook post appeared on a private Whittaker-related group, allegedly from someone close to the family. It claimed that Betty had been told by the state she had 30 days to fix their septic system or vacate the property. The post went viral within hours. Everyone started blaming someone: Patrick, the state, Eric. Some said Eric should have done more. Others accused him of abandoning the family. The truth, as always, was far more complicated. Months earlier, Eric had worked tirelessly to get donations for the Whittakers' living conditions, organizing fundraisers, coordinating supply shipments, and connecting with contractors who'd offered to help. But West Virginia's local laws and state agencies moved slowly, and everything that could go wrong did. Permits were delayed, supply costs rose, and communication broke down. When the septic issue came up, Eric wasn't even in the state. He had planned to return later that month to assess what was needed, but before he could, the investigation hit, freezing all progress. Every project, every effort, every good intention ground to a halt. Now, the same people who once cheered for him were turning those unfinished goals into accusations. Where did all the money go? They demanded. Why didn't the house get fixed? Eric wanted to scream the truth, because everything stopped when the world decided I was a criminal. But shouting never wins against a mob. At night, Eric's phone would buzz with updates from his lawyer, Tom Jacobs. The investigation hadn't uncovered any concrete evidence of wrongdoing, but the state police were still interviewing donors and reviewing financial transfers. Tom advised patience, but patience is a cruel medicine when your name is the one being questioned. Tom, Eric said one night during a call, they're destroying my reputation faster than you can clear it. I know, Tom replied calmly. But if you start fighting them in the open, you'll lose twice, once in the court of law and once in the court of public opinion. Eric sighed. What if I've already lost both? Tom didn't answer. Some silences are louder than words. Meanwhile, the Whittaker family's situation worsened. Betty and Larry, already under pressure from state inspectors, now faced the possibility of losing their home. Donations had slowed to a trickle after the controversy. Volunteers were hesitant to get involved. To outsiders, the Whittakers were a viral curiosity. But in reality, they were human beings, aging, tired, and confused about why the people who once promised help had suddenly vanished. Betty reportedly told a neighbor, they all said they'd fix things. Then they left. Now we're the ones paying for it. Her words spread like wildfire, but without the full story, without context, they sounded like blame. And in the online world, blame has a way of sticking. Eric read that quote in a Facebook post and stared at the screen for a long time. He didn't feel anger toward Betty, only heartbreak. She didn't know what had happened behind the scenes. She didn't understand that the same investigation tearing his life apart had frozen hers, too. Still, the weight of her words crushed him. One night, during a live broadcast on a small YouTube channel, a caller phoned in claiming to have inside information. I heard Patrick and Eric were both making money from the donations, the caller said confidently. They promised a new house but never built it. The host nodded gravely, feeding the narrative. So you're saying this was planned? That's what people around town are saying. By morning, the clip had 100,000 views. The caller's name wasn't mentioned, but the damage was done. Eric's lawyer texted him the video with a single line, "Do not respond to this." But he couldn't resist. He recorded a short, emotional video later that night. "People are saying I scammed the Whittakers," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "If you think I did this for money, you don't know me at all. I didn't make a cent. I spent thousands of my own dollars trying to help them. If that makes me guilty, then I guess I'm guilty of caring too much." It was raw and unpolished, the kind of vulnerability you can't fake. Some viewers saw that sincerity and felt ashamed of their earlier judgment. Others dismissed it as performative. The internet never agrees on anything. Behind closed doors, Eric began compiling everything: screenshots of donation receipts, communication logs, video messages, and bank transfers. He wanted transparency, even if it meant baring his entire digital life to strangers. But as he gathered the evidence, he noticed something else: confusion in the donations. Some funds had gone directly to Patrick's accounts, others to third-party intermediaries, moderators, fans, even relatives of donors who claimed to be helping. The web of transactions was a tangled mess. Tom, his lawyer, frowned as he flipped through the printed pages. This is exactly why investigations like this spiral. Too many hands, too little oversight. "So you're saying someone else might have?" "I'm saying people may have used your name. Whether for greed, confusion, or clout, I don't know yet. But it's possible you're not being accused of what you did, but of what others did in your name." Eric froze. "Then how do I prove I didn't?" Tom gave a small, sad smile. "That's the hardest part." By the third week, the story had taken on a life of its own. Local reporters started calling it the Whittaker controversy. National outlets flirted with covering it but hesitated. It was messy, emotional, and full of contradictions. For Eric, it was surreal. He'd become a symbol, not of advocacy or compassion, but of controversy. People debated his character as if it were public property. They called him a hero, a fraud, a fool, a martyr. Every opinion said more about the people holding it than it did about him. He spent one long night rereading old messages from supporters, families he'd helped, fathers who'd found comfort in his work, people who'd thanked him for giving them hope. It reminded him that once upon a time, before the chaos, he had done something meaningful. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't gone forever. In the middle of it all, Betty's health reportedly declined. A family friend posted online that she'd been seen at a local clinic, looking frail and tired. The comments under that post quickly turned toxic, people blaming Eric, Patrick, the state, anyone they could point a finger at. Eric saw it and felt a wave of guilt wash over him. It didn't matter that he wasn't responsible. He still felt responsible. Because he had cared. Because he still did. He turned off his phone, sat in silence, and whispered to himself, "This isn't how helping people is supposed to feel." Days later, another statement came from the authorities, brief and vague. The investigation was still open, but there was no conclusive evidence of fraudulent intent. It wasn't an acquittal, but it was the closest thing to relief he'd had in weeks. He didn't celebrate. He didn't post. He just sat in the quiet of his home, letting the exhaustion settle. He knew it wasn't over. He knew public perception doesn't follow legal timelines. But for the first time, he felt like the truth was starting to whisper its way back into the light. And maybe, just maybe, that whisper would grow loud enough to drown out the noise. Comment below. Do you think Eric is beginning to regain control of his story? Or has the online storm already written its own ending for him? The air in Odd, West Virginia was colder now, the leaves curling and falling along the gravel roads that led to the Whittaker property. The chaos of summer had faded, but the silence that replaced it was uneasy. Everyone had grown tired of the story, Yet it still lingered, like smoke that refused to clear. Eric drove down that road one last time. He hadn't been back since everything fell apart. He'd spoken to the authorities, given every document they asked for, and now the investigation was all but over. There were no charges. No proof of wrongdoing. Just headlines that had done their damage and whispers that never really stopped. When he pulled up near the Whittaker home, he saw Larry sitting outside, rocking slowly in a chair. Betty wasn't there. She was inside resting, someone said. The yard looked the same, quiet and worn, though a few repairs had been made. The new roof glinted under the gray sky. Larry looked up, squinting. "Thought you weren't coming back?" he said softly. Eric smiled faintly. "Didn't plan to. But I needed to." Larry nodded, not saying more. They sat in silence for a while, the sound of wind rustling through the trees filling the space between them. Finally, Eric said, "I didn't do it for fame, Larry. Or money. I just wanted to help." Larry's eyes met his. "I know," he said simply. "We all got used. You by them folks online. Us by people who said they'd fix things. Ain't no one clean in this world." Eric nodded. There wasn't anything left to say. That night, Eric posted his final video. "I've been accused, defended, doubted, and dissected," he began. "But through it all, I've learned one thing. When you stand up to help people, you better be ready to stand alone too." He paused, his voice steady. "The investigation's over. I've been cleared. But you can't clear a reputation with a document. You can't rebuild trust with proof. That has to be earned again, one honest day at a time." His tone softened. "To everyone who stood by me, thank you. To those who doubted me, I forgive you. Because I've learned that pain and misunderstanding walk hand in hand in this world. What matters is how you walk through it." He ended the video there, no outro, no music, just silence. The comments poured in. Some apologetic, some hopeful, some still skeptical. But among them was one that stood out, written by an old follower. "The truth doesn't trend, but it lasts. Keep going, Eric." He smiled reading it. For the first time in months, he felt peace, not because everyone believed him, but because he no longer needed them to. The internet would move on. The Whittakers would fade back into their quiet life. And Eric Carroll, the man caught between compassion and controversy, would keep walking, not to prove anything, but simply because it was the right thing to do. Comment below. Now that Eric has been cleared, do you think the public will ever see him the same way again? Or has this chapter changed him forever? Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.